Today we look at the fifth of Jesus' Beatitudes, which says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." That's from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5, verse 7, and I've entitled my talk, Mercy as Triumph. In the well-known opening scene of the 1986 sequel to the movie Karate Kid, young Daniel LaRusso's older friend and karate teacher, Mr. Miyagi, confronts the bullying karate teacher of young Daniel's intimidating opponents. With a display of unassuming skill, the much older Mr. Miyagi takes down the more powerful-looking bully teacher in the parking lot to stop him from beating up his own students for having just lost to Daniel in a competition. With his hand raised as if to deliver a murderous strike, Mr. Miyagi throws the violent bully's own words back at him. "Mercy is for the weak. We do not train to be merciful here. A man face you, he is enemy. An enemy deserves no mercy." As the karate teacher bully cringes in fear, Mr. Miyagi gives a terrifying yell and chops his hand toward the bully's head in the anticipated devastating blow, only to stop millimeters before his hand makes contact. As they walk away from the humiliated bully, Daniel says, "You could have killed him. Why didn't you?" Mr. Miyagi sagely responds, "For person with no forgiveness in heart, living even worse punishment than death." Mercy is truly one of the best qualities in life. And as the character of Mr. Miyagi correctly demonstrated, mercy makes a person strong, not weak. Unlike some theological words, the concept of mercy is universally understood. For instance, in amateur sports, mercy rules are common, so that games either end or some advantage is given to a losing team when the score gets too lopsided. Wherever human tragedy happens, mercy becomes connected to the courageous efforts of rescuers. Wise people get it. Mercy is an indication of moral integrity that often rises to the level of heroism. The heroic nature of mercy shows up in the Bible in the parable of the Good Samaritan. In telling the story, Jesus laid out a gripping scenario where a traveler had been mugged and left for dead. First a priest, and later a Levite, who's also a religious leader. They both passed by, but chose to ignore the desperate plight of the nearly dead victim. The third passerby was a despised Samaritan who, despite his social standing, gave the kind of aid we would all hope for if we had been attacked. Jesus concluded his story by asking who had been a neighbor to the mugging victim. Although Jesus himself never used the word mercy in telling the parable, the teacher of the law to whom the parable was spoken correctly answered Jesus by saying, "The one who had mercy on him." I suspect it's the heroic nature of mercy that has caused the parable of the Good Samaritan to become part of culture. Even where people have little knowledge of the Bible, they still understand the concept of a Good Samaritan. Jesus regularly promoted the virtue of mercy. On one occasion, when Jesus was confronted by religious leaders for eating with sinners, he challenged them with a quotation from the ancient prophet Hosea. "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice." That's in Hosea 6:6, from Hosea 6:6. And then Jesus went on to say, "For I have not come to call the righteous." The religious people of Jesus' day, just like many of us today, had missed that important memo. In a similar way, in his never-ending dispute with the legalistic Pharisees, Jesus chastised them for their over-attention to obscure laws while ignoring the needs of people around them. You give 1/10 of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, Jesus said, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. That's from Matthew's Gospel 23, verse 23. And once again, Jesus echoed the thoughts of another ancient prophet, this time Micah, who famously wrote, "And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Micah 6:8. We do well to note that mercy ranks among the very highest of desirable qualities. And because mercy is such an important characteristic throughout the Bible, it's no surprise that mercy became part of Jesus' Beatitudes. And so the 5th Beatitude states, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." We instantly recognize a unique element in this Beatitude. Each of the other Beatitudes offer a reward that is a counterpart to the moral principle which produces the blessing. The meek, for example, will inherit the earth. Meekness and the earth offer no apparent direct connection. But according to the 5th Beatitude, the merciful receive exactly what they offer. Our problem with mercy is that we like to receive it, but we have a much harder time being merciful. Even the bully karate teacher in the movie ended up longing for mercy from Mr. Miyagi. The instant we mess up, which for some of us begins pretty shortly after we open our eyes in the morning, we hope for mercy. We can even become mercy addicts, moving from person to person and situation to situation, seeking another dose of mercy that will enable us to live in denial of our shortcomings. The most troubling implication in the 5th Beatitude, though, is that without showing mercy, we apparently will not receive mercy. And since we all desire to be treated with mercy, it becomes critical to ask, what is it that gets in our way of giving mercy? According to the Bible, there are 2 key aspects to mercy. The first major component of mercy is having compassion on the needy. Wherever Jesus went, he was bombarded with a plea: have mercy. Those were the words of multiple encounters with blind people, of a Canaanite woman whose daughter was demon-possessed, of a father whose son had epileptic seizures causing him to get burned in fires, of the 10 lepers, and others. Have mercy on us. The noteworthy element in each of these cases was that they allowed Jesus the choice to reach out in compassion or to ignore them and to carry on with his life. Each situation represented the same scenario as the parable of the Good Samaritan, where a priest and a Levite chose to not get involved. The plea for mercy always offers us a choice. Will we respond or not? Over the years, preachers have had fun coming up with excuses that the priest and the Levite in the Good Samaritan parable used to justify not practicing mercy. And the key word is justify. They were in a hurry, or they were distracted, or they felt too self-important, justifying their lack of mercy. To show mercy or withhold mercy exposes our own judgment. If we withhold mercy, we judge the situation to be undeserving of our efforts, and we judge ourselves to be more important than the people who need mercy. Withholding mercy ends up being an indictment against us for being judgmental. The second major component of mercy is showing forgiveness to an offender. In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 18, Jesus told a parable of a man who owed a king an amount so ridiculously large that it would have been absolutely impossible to repay. Recognizing the impossibility of the situation, the king forgave the man's massive debt. Upon leaving the king's presence, the forgiven debtor went to an associate who owed him a relatively small amount and demanded immediate payment. His associate didn't have the cash on hand, and so the debtor, whose impossibly large debt had been forgiven, had the man with the relatively small debt thrown into debtor's prison until that small debt would be paid. When the king heard what had transpired, he was furious and had the man whose debt had been forgiven thrown in prison to be tortured. The king thundered at him, "Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you?" The lesson is not that we have to demonstrate mercy to gain favor, but that having experienced God's mercy empowers us to be able to show mercy and to forgive. Failing to give mercy, on the other hand, exposes our inability to comprehend our own undeserving nature. Here again, failure to show mercy through not extending forgiveness demonstrates an attitude of judgmentalism. To not forgive means that we have judged another person unworthy of our mercy. We can't escape the conclusion that the barrier to our own expression of mercy is our own attitude of judgmentalism. On the one hand, we become immune to showing compassion, and on the other, we become incapable of offering forgiveness because we have judged other people to be unworthy of our mercy. James, the brother of Jesus, made that direct connection between mercy and judgment in his very practical epistle. James wrote, "Judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful." Then he went on to say, "Mercy triumphs over judgment." That's in James 2:13. We would do well to hold that simple statement in front of us. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Anytime our own judgmentalism gets in the way of expressing compassion or forgiveness. Contemporary culture has not made it easier to practice mercy. In the space of a few years, the most technologically challenged of us have been enabled to make videos and to publish our views on social media, and to offer opinions on the internet. That enablement does not always promote merciful actions and attitudes. I think it's worth asking, has the ability to promote our views made us more or less merciful, more or less judgmental? Human nature being what it is, YouTube is saturated with videos that gloat over the failures of other people. It's all good fun, we think. Who doesn't want to watch a video labeled "idiots in cars"? Well, not my wife, Faith. Within the theological world, there are endless websites dedicated to so-called Bible teachers exposing and judging the errors of other Bible teachers. Wherever we look, The internet offers the temptation to judge other people in ways we once were not able. The challenge within Jesus' fifth beatitude has never been greater. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Will we succumb to judgmental attitudes around us? Or will we allow God's mercy to us to empower us to look past social, religious, and political differences with mercy in our hearts and experience the truth that mercy triumphs over judgment?